Right now, you're going to make a decision. Maybe it's what to eat, maybe it's whether to reply to that message, maybe it's whether to keep watching this video or open something else. And you're going to feel like you chose. But here's what modern neuroscience has quietly confirmed, and what most people will spend their entire lives never knowing. By the time you feel like you made a decision, your brain had already made it, up to 10 full seconds before you were even conscious of it. Not a fraction of a second, 10 seconds. So if the choice was already made, who made it? In 1983, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet ran one of the most disturbing experiments in the history of psychology. He hooked participants up to an EEG machine to monitor brain activity. He then asked them to do something simple: flex their wrist whenever they felt like it, completely freely, completely voluntarily, no instructions on when. He also asked them to watch a clock and note the exact moment they felt the urge to move. What he found stopped the scientific world cold. The brain showed electrical activity, what's called the readiness potential, a full 550 milliseconds before the participant moved their wrist. But the participants only became conscious of the urge to move 200 milliseconds before they acted. Which means the brain had already initiated the action 350 milliseconds before the person even felt the desire to do it. The decision came first, the feeling of deciding came second. Libet's experiment has been repeated, refined, and expanded dozens of times since 1983. In 2008, using fMRI brain scanners, researchers at the Max Planck Institute pushed that gap even further. They could predict which hand a participant was going to choose to move up to 10 seconds before the participant reported making the decision. 10 seconds. This isn't a quirk of laboratory conditions. This is how your brain works every moment of every day. Now, before you spiral into an existential crisis, this isn't the scary part. The scary part is what's doing the deciding for you. Because your brain doesn't make decisions in a vacuum. It runs on a program built not by you but by everything that happened to you before you were old enough to question it. Psychologists call it the asterisk implicit self. Neuroscientists call it asterisk procedural memory, but the simplest way to understand it is this. Your brain is a prediction machine. Every experience you've ever had, every consequence, every reward, every punishment, every moment of love or rejection or embarrassment got filed away, not as a memory you can recall, as a rule, a silent operating instruction about how the world works and what you should do in it. By the time you were 7 years old, the foundational architecture of this program was largely in place. Not finished, but foundational. And here's what that means. When you feel like you're choosing what to eat, who to trust, how to respond when someone criticizes you, whether to take that risk or play it safe, you're not really choosing fresh. You're executing a pattern that was written years, sometimes decades, before this moment. The feeling of choice is real, but it's running on top of a system you didn't build and mostly can't see. Let's make this concrete, because this is where it stops being abstract and starts being personal. Think about the last time someone gave you critical feedback, not devastating feedback, just ordinary criticism, a comment on your work, a suggestion you do something differently. How did you react? Maybe you got defensive immediately, maybe you went quiet and withdrew, maybe you overexplained yourself, maybe you apologized even when you weren't sure you'd done anything wrong. Now here's the question nobody asks: why that reaction specifically? Because your colleague next to you heard the exact same feedback and shrugged. Your friend heard similar words last week and said, "Thanks, good point," and moved on. Same stimulus, completely different response. The difference isn't the feedback, the difference is the program. Somewhere in your past, criticism meant something specific. Maybe it came with consequences. Maybe it came with a certain tone of voice that signaled danger. Maybe the person who criticized you most often was someone whose approval you desperately needed. Your brain filed that pattern, and now, decades later, anytime the word criticism enters your environment, your survival brain runs that same old file, before your thinking brain has even had time to evaluate whether this situation is actually the same. This is why smart people keep making the same relationship mistakes, why capable people freeze in front of opportunity, Why someone can know exactly what they need to do and still not do it. It's not a knowledge problem, it's a program problem. The philosopher Alfred Korzybski said something in 1933 that took science 70 years to fully prove. The map is not the territory. What he meant was this: the way you see the world is not the world. It's a map your brain drew based on your specific experiences, your specific wounds, your specific history. And you navigate everything through that map. The problem is most people don't know they have a map. They think they're seeing reality. They think their reactions are reasonable because they feel reasonable from inside the map. But you're not seeing the territory, you're seeing your interpretation of it, filtered through every formative experience you've ever had. Two people walk into the same room, one feels safe, one feels threatened. The room didn't change, the map did. Two people face the same setback, one sees an obstacle, one sees confirmation that they were always going to fail. The setback didn't change, the map did. And here is what neuroscience has confirmed. Your brain will actively distort incoming information to make it match your existing map. This is called asterisk confirmation bias at the surface level, but it runs much deeper than the version you've heard about. Your brain isn't just favoring information that confirms your beliefs. It's literally filtering your perception. Things that don't fit the map get processed differently, flagged as less real, less important, less worth responding to. You are not experiencing reality. You are experiencing your prediction of reality, constantly updated but always anchored to the original program. So the question becomes, can the program be rewritten? And this is where it gets genuinely extraordinary. For most of human history, the answer was assumed to be no. You are who you are, personality is fixed, character is fate. The Stoics debated it, the Church institutionalized it, Freud made a career out of excavating it without being able to change it much. Then in the 1990s, a discovery quietly rewrote everything. Neuroplasticity. The brain is not fixed after childhood, it is not hardwired permanently after adolescence. The brain, throughout your entire life, can form new connections, strengthen new pathways, and literally restructure itself based on new experience. But here's what nobody tells you about neuroplasticity. It doesn't happen through insight alone. Knowing your patterns doesn't change them. Understanding why you react the way you do doesn't stop the reaction. This is why therapy can go on for years with a person who completely understands their childhood trauma and still flinches at the same triggers. Understanding lives in the thinking brain. The program runs in the survival brain, and those are two different systems. Real change, the kind that actually rewires the program, requires something different. It requires *** new experience paired with new meaning. Not just thinking differently, doing something different in a real situation that triggers the old pattern and surviving it with a different outcome. Every time you take a risk that the program says is dangerous, and it turns out okay, you write a new line of code. Every time you stay with discomfort instead of running from it and you come out the other side, the old rule weakens slightly. Every time you choose the response you want instead of the one you were conditioned to give, the map shifts a fraction. It's not fast, the program wasn't written in a day. But it is rewritable, that's what the science says, not as a comforting metaphor, as a measurable biological fact. Here's what makes this so important to understand right now. We live in a world that is more optimized than any world that has ever existed to trigger your oldest programs. Social media is engineered to activate your fear of rejection, your need for approval, your tribal instincts. News is designed to keep your threat detection system permanently switched on. Advertising works by finding the wound in your map and pouring into it. None of these systems are trying to help you rewrite your program, they are trying to exploit it. And they are extraordinarily good at it. Which means, unless you understand that you have a program, that it was written without your consent, and that it is being actively targeted, you will spend your life reacting to a world that is not the world, from a self that is not fully yours. The philosopher Epictetus was born a slave in ancient Rome. He had no freedom of movement, no property, no rights. Everything about his external life was controlled by someone else. And yet he became one of the most influential thinkers in history. because he understood something that most free people never grasp. He wrote, "Men are disturbed not by the things which happen but by the opinions about the things." He wasn't talking about positive thinking. He was describing 2,000 years before neuroscience confirmed it, the exact mechanism we've been talking about today. The event doesn't create your reaction, the map does. And the map can be questioned, the map can be challenged, the map slowly, carefully through real experience and real courage can be redrawn. You are not your programming, you are the one who can become aware of it. And awareness, real awareness, not just intellectual understanding but the lived, practiced, embodied kind is where freedom actually begins. Tonight, when you make a decision, and you will, dozens of them before you sleep, pause for just a moment. Ask yourself, is this me choosing, or is this the program running? You won't always know the answer, but the fact that you're asking is already something your ancestors and most people alive right now never thought to do. That question is the beginning of the rewrite. You didn't choose the program, but you can choose what you do with it.